the effort in coming this year. Our goal with this conference is to give you guys and to give film festival organizers kind of an insight on trends, on the market, on actual data that you guys can use, and strategies and tools that you can use to define a better and more targeted strategy for your festivals or for your projects, your film creative projects. We all know that festivals are coming up, probably 1 or 2 every single day around the world. It's really important to define a mission, it's really important to define an audience, and you can only do that if you know how to handle the tools and how to understand the market. Welcome, thank you so much. I really want to hear everyone's opinion and feedback at the end or during the day. So this is like our edition 0, let's say. So we're going to kind of test it with you guys, and we really want to hear what is it that you think, what is it that interests you the most in all these topics, in all the 5 sessions, and especially what is it that you'd like to hear from us next year. We want to learn from you, and we want you guys to learn obviously from us. We want to also create with Film Festivals Days a platform that we can also use throughout the year. So obviously our goal is to do every single year do a new conference, but throughout the year we want a community to be growing, and we want to interact with you guys and create an actual audience of us all. So feel free to.
I don't really see big differences, so I may be different than what has been told so far, but personally I don't see big changes. Main changes I see is maybe that festivals used to be partners to distribute the films, to launch the films, and nowadays festivals, and I'm not talking about big festivals that festivals of Cannes, Berlin, Toronto. It's B2B, and it's important to launch the film. But a lot of other festivals that can have a lot of audience are also important because they are a market in themselves. You know, when you make short films, quite the only way to watch short films are festivals, was the biggest festivals. And it's the same also for feature and docs. Docs certainly, and feature in art house films, it's very important. We have, you know, for instance, a guy like Christian Mungiu, very well known, very makes award in Cannes, Berlin. The film of Christian Mungiu in Belgium makes 5,000 admissions, which is desperate. But in the meantime, he travels the world with his film, and he put Romania on the map, on the world map, and a lot of people watch the films and watch his films. So festivals are important also in this regard, and more.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. That's really interesting, and that also goes in touch not only with the importance of festivals, but something that I was just talking to Bruno about, that not only festivals, but film in general, it's about telling stories that actually matter. And that matter to you as a filmmaker, that matters to your audience, even if, you know, it's just 5,000 people. It doesn't really matter. What matters is for you to tell something that engages with people, that tells a story, that passes a message. And that takes me to you, James, because you've had so much experience in festivals throughout all the years.
Yeah.
Even before, you know, all this online and digital age, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the way that festival audiences engage with these type of content, with stories, did it actually change? Or do you feel the interest is more or less the same? And if so, how is it that a festival organizer can kind of manage that, to build that audience and to build that community, to keep going and going and going?
It's a really good question, and indeed you could build a whole conference around it. And
exactly.
Perhaps we indeed have today and tomorrow. It used to be easier, but it is still absolutely possible to fill your cinemas you are competing more and more with other types of content, whether it be live experiential experiences or video games, especially.
Yes.
So it's not that the audience is smaller, it's just that they're busier and they're more distractible. And before YouTube came along and blew ResFest out of the water, people would fill up the National Film Theatre in the South Bank of London because it was literally the only opportunity they had to see things. So marketing was a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
It was simply then about saying, it's on, folks, and people would just come.
Right.
When you are starting to compete for people's attention, you have to be far more strategic, as your presentation earlier today bore out and was very good at demonstrating ways in which to do it. There will be, like we were talking about just over in that corner, each festival will have, because it's from the city that it's from, it will have a built-in core audience.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, you need to tell them it's on, and you need to survey them and work out what they want and schedule very carefully as well, so that if somebody wants a Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers movie, make sure it's not at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, you know, put it on at 11 o'clock in the morning or a matinee. So look after that audience, and then what you want to do as an institution is editorialise in a way. You want to, and certainly the London Indian Film Festival that I was just working for was very much an exercise in projecting a world that they wished to exist and to help bring it into existence a little bit. So there was a lot of LGBTQ films in that festival, which is unusual for a South Asian audience and very challenging for that audience as well. So there's an example of a festival which, unlike say Edinburgh, or London, which is a festival of festivals and plays the New Christians and whatever it can get its hands on, has an opportunity to be political in one sense or the other. And I'm very much looking forward to the challenge of working for Sheffield, which I'm about to start doing, which is the biggest documentary event in the UK and probably the second biggest English language documentary event. And it's fiercely political, that festival, and they've just hired a new director from Doc Lisboa, who's going to be very political, I think, as well. So then, having done that, political or LGBTQ or stuff which isn't sort of canonical filmmaking, it's really challenging, and in a good way, to find the audience. And that audience member is probably not even aware that the Sheffield is throwing a film festival. They've just heard about that film, and they go along and go, what are all these lanyards and bags? And I just want to watch the movie. So the challenge for a programmer is to find the path to that filmmaker, and usually the path to that filmmaker is your marketing and social media teams. So your first audience member is your colleagues.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I could go on and on.
Go on
but,
and on.
yeah, but I mean, I've got some war stories about me getting really excited about a movie and everything and chucking it into the program in Cork, and then it played to no one, and I couldn't work out why. And the answer was, well, because you did it fast, last minute, didn't explain it to the marketing staff. They then got scared of the film because they thought they'd mess it up or message it poorly, and so they didn't bother. And if we have time, I'd like to come back to a bit about the ethics and practicalities of working with staff, usually young people in a film festival as well. But
that's also an interesting topic. Katie, obviously you have a lot of experience strategizing with the filmmakers, the festival strategy. Because obviously, if you apply to a certain type of festival, you need to be sure that the content that you're selling actually fits their program. How would you say that that interaction between filmmakers and festivals needs to be done in regards to the type of strategy that you do? What are the highlights of the strategy that you try to build with filmmakers? Does it concern content uniquely, or is there something else that is relevant for the festival strategy?
Again, like a question I could talk about all day.
Yeah.
Because I think there are certain things that film festivals should do that they don't, and also similarly from the filmmaker side, there are lots of things that they should do and they don't. When we work with a filmmaker, we're assessing the strength of the content from the start. So we don't take everything on. We consider everything, and we'll see if it's strong enough, if we think there are enough assets to kind of exploit from it, if it's fresh enough, because there's no point taking something too old. because it's not eligible for a whole lot of festivals. But then also we're talking to filmmakers about the most suitable budget for their film as well. So the way that we strategize is we have a cap budget that the filmmaker would like to spend on submission fees, and then we reverse engineer it. So we kind of go, okay, we're going to strategize for a year, this is how much they've got, these are the festivals that we want to allocate the money to, and really stretch it as far as we can. So in terms of how we approach and have those conversations with festivals, we know lots of programmers and directors from top tier to very small and niche, but it doesn't guarantee anything.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, the content's got to be strong, it might not fit their remit that year, they may kind of have something that's similar that pips into the post, a number of things. But we are kind of looking at what we call stories in front of the camera and stories behind. So a lot of the time a filmmaker will come to us and say, I've made a film. And we go, yeah, it's great, but it's not just a film. You've made a LGBTQ sci-fi, it's under 10 minutes.
To help them understand that.
Yeah, and actually kind of say, look, the BAFTA and the Academy list are wonderful festivals. They are absolutely fantastic, but your film is not just going to go to those. There's a whole wealth of festivals out there, like 5,000 plus and counting every day coming up. But for us, it's about kind of getting those films seen and getting a filmmaker to understand you're still a filmmaker if you don't screen in Cannes, Venice, Berlinale, and everywhere else. But actually kind of saying the strength of your film is you need it to hit an audience, and your audience is here. So, you know, we do have an LGBTQ Indian film which is doing remarkably well, both in traditional festivals with no specificity, LGBTQ festivals, Indian focus festivals, as well as female focus festivals. So it's about, for us, re-educating a filmmaker about the festival circuit, because as far as they're concerned, nobody watches your film, you need to know someone to get in, and it's a waste of money. And there are 3 myths that we dispel from the start of the word go, and actually say it doesn't matter, your film's got to be strong enough and stand by itself. Now, film festivals can be more transparent with what they want and what they don't want.
That is a great topic.
And we've seen, off the back of Black Mirror, we've seen a lot of naturalistic sci-fi and naturalistic sci-fi and horror. So a lot of film festivals now, if they're genre specific, will be up front in their rules and regulations, and they'll say, we want slasher, we want final girl, we want body horror, we do not want psychological horror. So as a filmmaker, if you understand what your film is and you go, okay, I was going to submit there, but I've not got what they want, I'm going to save that money and spend it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So I think film festivals can be a bit more transparent if they're not ready, but then at the same time, filmmakers can research what they've previously screened. So it's kind of a two-way street. For us, we're in the middle to manage expectations for a filmmaker, which are generally quite high, too high.
Yes.
And then also kind of be that conduit for the festival, because for us, we see ourselves as a pre-selector. So we're only going to be sending them strong content that suits. Yeah. So.
Thank you. And to you now, Sergey, from the point of view of a festival organizer, obviously you run a very interesting festival. In regards to this point where festivals should be straightforward and transparent in regards to the content that they're looking for, because they want to send a message. How do you organize this? How do you manage your audience expectation? How do you try to tell them what type of content are you looking for, or do you try to get as much content as possible, and then you will try to program it? How do you organize this process?
We from the beginning we focused on European co-production. So this was rather to have a boutique festival of because the premise was that people have two main things: less money and less time. So why should somebody go to your festival or some event, right? So we thought like this is good to focus on financing and have the content in terms of films, projects that have been, they can be Asian or South American, but they have to have the European either finance or creative element in the films. So this was the core focus of the main program. But then we had like retrospectives on Antonioni or Jean Rouge or other filmmakers from Europe. So, and then I would say you shape it, because things are changing very fast. And whatever even the big festivals can, they have an issue, they have a problem, because they have to change. because the world is going, in a very fast pace, digital, new generations. So, you cannot stay with the premise from 50 years ago. You have to adapt, not all, but some elements. So, but on the other hand, we had an issue like coming back to Mongio, we came to the mayor of the city and said we will have Romanian films, and he was like, what?
Oh my God.
Romanian films? Who's going to watch that?
Okay.
I mean, you have to understand, then you are in between a cultural interest and the financial or touristic interest of the local community, and you have to adapt to both, right? You cannot say, well, we're going to show the Romanian. We had the Thai movie from Apichat Pong Verasetakul, So at the end was 3 people in the audience, and you can do this once, but you cannot do it with 20 films. They're going to stop financing, because the local community, the politics, the tourist board, they have different interests than LGBT group or Indian community or whatever. So in a way, I'd say you have to kind of go with the flow in a way.
Yes, and have balance.
In our community, we couldn't do a LGBT festival because there is no audience for it. Or very little, limited, so you cannot finance it, So you can do this in big cities, in Rome, in London, in Berlin, where the community exists. So it's really to have a two-way communication with the audience, to see, okay, what do you want to see? And not only like you have to watch this because this won in Cannes the award, it's not the reason.
Sometimes that frightens people off.
Yes,
It's
and they
not
say,
a
oh,
movie
this is a lead
smart
thing,
for me.
they're smart asses, why I don't feel comfortable with that festival because it's like, I'm not part of it. So it's
But that brings me to an issue actually, which is how, because obviously festivals have different goals, one goal is to get funding and get people to see and to buy tickets, but the other goal, which is probably, why we all do it, it's the educational goal. So even though you don't have an LGBTQ community, for instance.
Sorry, but I don't think that festivals are educational.
Oh, no?
No, because my parents are 86. When they were 20, 25, there was one cinema, so they would go to watch all these American movies, and it's first of all, it was a cultural but also an entertainment thing, and then the education comes with the film, with Fellini or whatever, but it's not like to hit them on the head and you have to go to learn. No, I don't want to. I want to see this because I feel good, and I feel also today the films miss this feel-good feeling. They don't have to have a happy ending, but when I go out, I want to have a feel-good. I want to, it can be a drama,
So
a
for
tragedy.
you, you say it's entertainment mostly.
But
No,
I think
no,
they're
no.
entwined, because I think that festivals are there to educate, inspire and inform, and I think the education doesn't necessarily mean watch a documentary, learn something. You can learn a story from another culture. So
Yes.
yeah, so that I
But
think
it's
they're
not the first
entwined.
thing. Is not education. It's not the first thing.
Entertainment, yes, but I think the education
It's a night
is-
out.
Yeah, but I
But
still
also-
think you can leave the cinema going, I didn't know anything about
Absolutely.
that, and I know
Absolutely.
I've been
I agree with you.
entertained.
But I had a conversation really outside here. What I think also many festivals make wrong is like it's about culture. No, it's a marketing tool for somebody. The Cannes and the Venice Film Festival are political marketing tools to communicate some idea, whatever it is. But it's, it's a like the Venice was started by Mussolini, but then they started Cannes as a so it's something to communicate some ideas or some visions of the world or whatever, and it's not only culture, because it's also product placement. If you don't have Monica Bellucci, nobody will come. So you have to bring her to the stage and put Armani or her. I mean, it's all. It's not only the culture. It's much more
Yes,
than.
but you have to balance everything, because you cannot say that Cannes or Venice are not cultural.
They are cultural.
But it's true that when you're a festival director, you have to deal with a lot of things. You have to deal with local authorities, you have to deal with sponsors, we have to deal with the audience, with a lot of, with the industry, because it's difficult when you're not. If you don't have strong relationship with the industry, they don't give you the film.
Can I have your take on this, Eric?
Yes.
Because I do believe that's really important, that when certain topics are not trendy in that specific community or city or region, they still are introduced by these type of events. And I do feel that us as festival organizers do have, or us that work in institutions, in film, or have kind of like the duty to actually provide those topics and get that into discussion. So what's your point on the fact that even if you know, getting the Sergei's example, even if you know that his region would not really care for an LGBTQ film, isn't it important that he introduces it nonetheless?
Well, I will not talk for a festival, but I just what I
Your opinion?
yes,
as
my
a-
opinion.
Yeah.
That, well, my opinion is that a festival should be coherent, and in this respect, if you're into a comedy film festival, it's okay. It's not I'm not asking for them to be very cultural or very, but it has to be current, and it has to give the people and the industry what they are expecting, and not. And when I say that it's not that you should only screen film without surprises. You can bring topics or that people would be I don't know how to express it, but that people could be punished, by watching the film. So it's more. I think the main thing is to be coherent in what you're proposing to the audience, the directors, the industry. I think that in certain cases, people try to bring festivals or cultural events to make things change, But not every festival should do this.
But I just have to say, we had LGBT films, not to think that we don't really have,
No,
it's like,
not
it's just like, it's not the
specifically,
main,
yes.
you will have much more audience in the,
Yes, absolutely.
and they are well visited, because then these people also get like, okay, it's becoming something that I can show off, and it's like, we had this French movie, Love, from the Argentinian director, that's actually a porn movie, that was.
Yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
Yes, so it was a Croatian premiere, and it was packed, But the only one who don't show up is the politicians. So they call, oh, can we see it in off screening? No, you have to go to show to your voters that you are an if you show there in this public screening, it's a good political statement. You don't have to say anything, you just come to the screening, So you kind of, in this way, but it has to go step by step. You cannot hit them with a hammer now to have 20 films like that. But one is like
Get the conversation
Right.
going. James, let me get to you regarding partners, because obviously when you're structuring a festival and when you're considering your audience, you have to think about partners that will kind of help you build that audience. And you have to think about all the topics that you're going to talk about. You have to think about sensitivities, How does a festival, or how should a festival mindset be in regards to how to build a partner list, or how to think, what are the best partners, etc. How do you do this?
So there are multiple stakeholders, of course. The audience is one, and the funders, the politicians. You're doing it under their license. I believe a good early, easy one to start with is to go to the film schools or media colleges where your film festival is taking place, and give a lecture to the students and then recruit volunteers from those students, because they're the seasoned past-buyers of the future, and possibly even the content creators of the future. And that's quite an easy, cheap trick, really, and I did that really well in Cork, and I ended up getting pre-selecting shorts onto the curriculum of the BA film studies.
Yeah.
They had to watch 70 films and write some words, and they got points. So that's you can have that one for free. But what's a more subtle piece of work, but very powerful, is I decided when I was in Cork that one of the things that we weren't talking about in Ireland at all was mental health. So I made a mental health sidebar in the festival, and the way that we would do it is we would play a movie which had mental health in it in some way, no middle-aged white guys in doctors' white coats sort of thing, not that sort of film, but usually dramas or a series of shorts. And then we build a panel, hopefully with a filmmaker, but then experts, service end users, psychiatrists, whatever. And then that package then can be marketed to a community which is not your core film festival audience. And you go and meet them and sit down. And what you're actually saying to them is, I've done all this work for you. That you're trying to build awareness of X. This film builds awareness of X. Can we work together? And basically what you're saying is, can you email your mailing list? And members of this community, it's only a $5, that sort of thing. So it doesn't need to be a hooky documentary, although that definitely helps when films are overtly about a thing or social change. It becomes really quite easy to find those partners. Another job that I'll have to get stuck into when I'm in Sheffield is very much more of a commercial concern. Sheffield is a market, very much a business-to-business proposition, although there's a strong local audience for the documentaries they play. What it strives to do, amongst many things, is to make sure that the global documentary making and acquiring community is in Sheffield. So I need to find those people and entice them to come, and that's expensive. And indeed, you can't get a hotel room night during the course of Sheffield. Sheffield's not that small a city either, really. So it'll be my job to find people who want their brand to be amplified in association with my event, who then will either pay or work in kind to give help. So it could be a city council green initiative, or it could be new airline flying in and out of the John Lennon Airport, or whatever. You just sort of try to find who is doing a thing and would like some light. Oftentimes not even asking for cash. At that time it's more, well, look, nice to have met you, and don't worry, put your checkbook away. What else do you do all the time that if you do it with me can help people find out more about me, and then achieve the ultimate goal, which is to get the delegates to come and to drive the ticket sales.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. This also brings us to, the new age. Obviously, there's all these strategies and all this programming that you need to be aware of when you're thinking about your audience and when you're building it. But another thing about the new age is new technologies, new formats. And perhaps you, Katie, can give us an idea of possible trends for now and for the future. We all know that short formats are rising really, really fast. How can you use these short formats, whether they're films or just clips, or just a scene from a film, or even promotional videos, to kind of engage with partners, with your audience, with stakeholders in general?
Yeah, again, that's quite a big question. But I think the one thing I've seen change a lot, I've been doing this particular role in this industry for 15 years, so I've kind of seen lots of different changes. I think now what's become really evident is that the idea of using a festival and short form content as a springboard for your debut feature or prolonged kind of amount of features after that is increasing. So there's 3 words that always petrify programmers, which is proof of concept, because they get concerned that a proof of concept short isn't actually going to be self-contained. It's just going to be a short scene that lops off and there's no narrative. But we have seen a lot more festivals embrace shorter content. and by that having different categories. So 6 minutes and under is a super short, or 360 seconds. And I think in terms of embracing new ages and new audiences, the biggest thing for me, and it is always a topic that is on the tip of my tongue, is about festivals, not all of them, but some of them embracing the content that's online, because that is our audience. That, we all watch stuff online, whether it be a viral clip or it's a clip from, a short interview from the Great Norton Show. It's kind of, a minute and a half, and we always watch it because we go, I don't want to watch the whole program. And I think that has fundamentally changed how we imbibe our content now. And a lot more festivals are utilising it in a different way, because I can tell you now, going to different festivals, we see, when you have the ident for a festival, we see a lot now that people have commissioned it. So it is actually, it's a high concept, or it's a very kind of, it's a sizzle reel for the festival that they play at the beginning of each program block, and it's almost a short form in itself. And I think that's kind of talking. We've seen that a lot more in America, I would say, but I think like short content, it just changes so much, and we've seen a lot more commissioned categories pop up, which means that people aren't just saying, well, I've made this thing for a company, it's just going to go on the company website. They actually kind of are opening a door and allowing them to be kind of included in that idea of, I can compete in a festival, I can reach a wider audience. And you get that a lot more in animation, I would say, with online. Are kind of allowing filmmakers of all varieties, not necessarily just a traditional filmmaker, to be welcomed.
Can I add a footnote to that?
Absolutely.
Be wary of the corporate video when doing a deal with a partner. So, thank you very much, Cork Airport, for having my brochures on that table and everything. Will you play our video on closing night? Let's have a look at it. And it was just horrible. And, I had to say no. And there were some disappointed faces, but it would have ruined the evening.
Yeah.
3 minutes of terrible films.
So maybe you can talk also a bit about this in terms of what do you think that festivals should try to adapt to these new formats in order to try to build a bigger audience, or do you feel that the formats and the categories that are accepted nowadays should be the ones that thrive?
I don't know. I don't think anything. I mean, everybody should. It's difficult to say they should do this or they should do that. It's really complicated. It's because it's where is the festival, who is doing the festival, what is your target audience. It's so many elements that it's very individual for each festival, I would say. But my son is 11. That's a different world. This is like PlayStation generation. That's the channel how you get to. He goes in the multiplex, and I support this. He doesn't go for the art house films, So we live in a center where the art house cinema is like 50 meters from us. But this is, let's say, the client of the next generation for the cinemas, for whatever it is, if it is exhibitions or art or culture, whatever. So this is difficult to say it should be like that, But I take him and we watch Kurosawa movie, and then he says, wow, this is amazing, But I have to take him by the hand and bring him there. So this is my contribution to society. I cannot say but I cannot tell him stop playing PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because he plays with some people in India or Korea, and it's beautiful, So, but this is a digital age, and that's how it is. So it's use it. I mean, you have to use it. What else to say?
And in terms of promotion, Eric.
Maybe can I just add something? I think that when you're a festival, you should just watch contents without prejudice. So you just watch them, and if they fit to what you want to show, no one care about if it's a video clip or if it's YouTube. Maybe you have, of course, this problem with you want to show premiere, and when it's online, it's complicated. But you can find a way to promote it. For instance, in VR, all festivals want to try this, and most of them, they are doing bad because lots of these programs are not good. That's true. But Venice did a very strong, very good thing. They selected its VR is just they want to show not VR. They want to show content, good content, and some artistic content. And they have this VR island that they create, and it works. And so my point is that you don't care about the media. It's the content that is important. I've just seen that now you have, Hot Dogs, the Toronto festival, they are programming podcast now. It's a it's reinvention of radio. Podcast becomes something trendy, something, and why not? It's great. It's great to hear good program, and now you can hear them with your iPhone, with a new car, and so it's people want to listen, to watch, to see, to watch stories, and you have also now the distinction between documentary and fiction, animation, and what is real, what is not real. We have documentary, and it's based on shooting game images. So this is, when you watch it, you don't know what it is, because it's mixing fiction, documentary, and who cares? You watch it, it's good, or it's not good, and that's what is important.
Also, one thing to add is maybe location. I heard from a festival in Kosovo, documentary festival, and they say they have a location, and this location brings the audience, not the films. The people want to go in this location, it's on a hill or something, so they want, and then they can show them anything.
Yeah.
The people will
come here.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah.
People just go for that experience.
For the experience of the location, of the gathering, of the socializing, whatever.
But you can extend this to a festival. If you go to Doc Leipzig, in November, it's very. Some films are very hard to handle. It's very edgy, and the venues are packed because people it exists since 64 years. And they managed to have this community of viewers, and a lot of them are very young, but they managed to, I go to Doc Leipzig, and I will watch, I know that I will watch films that are coming from nowhere, and I want to see them. And that's great. You don't go to watch this film or this film, you go to the festival. And this is very, very important. I think that these festivals are doing well also because they are challenging themselves always. They are integrating young programmers, they are working with young people who will do the marketing, do the communication. So it's important to feel the trends, and also to help them or to sometimes create them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. And before opening the floor for questions, I want to talk about something that's probably, besides films and besides the experience that you create, that kind of engage people and bring audiences in, is top talent, right? Like, talent obviously brings people in. How can festivals attract top talent for their programs? What strategies should they go for? What type of talent should they go for? What are your takes on this? Maybe you, James.
Because you have the PR people who work with and for you will always be demanding something to feed the beast being the media, and it isn't much of a story to say man puts on a movie, that's not news. But Kate Winslet comes to town, he's used. Actually, while I'm talking about Kate Winslet, to answer your question, when I was in Edinburgh, I've forgotten the name of the film now, the remake. And anyway, Edinburgh and Venice were at the same time, and both of them invited her to come and do a red carpet. She chose Venice because the weather's nicer. You know, so it can be about the experience. You'll often find the talents manager is ringing around festivals because the talent's got 6 weeks off and wants to get their IMDb star meter up a little bit. You'll find maybe if you can get the premiere of the film, whether it be nationally or even regionally, then the producer or the sales agent will work with you to deliver the talent so that it can make it much more of a gala event. I find all of that very distracting, actually, and I'd rather people read my brochure really carefully than just came because Michael Moore was in town. But I do understand that it does make life a lot easier if you've got someone to cut the tape or walk on a carpet.
I think it's really important for festival goers. You know, you go to festivals to watch, to also see talents. You know, and if you want top talents, there's so many parameters to handle.
Yeah, I was only talking about top talent, so I think we should get as many filmmakers into the city as possible.
Yes,
to present their work. Absolutely, that's different, and that's not
more
important.
It's more interesting, but yes,
I'd rather spend the money on that. Actually,
yeah. But I will tell you just an example. We had this film, The Brand New Testament, with Catherine Deneuve. Catherine Deneuve, to the Hamburg Film Festival in Germany, wanted to have her, and it took 2 months of negotiations to have her. Not only because of her, it's also because of distributor wanted to have her to launch the film just with the festival. You need sponsor to pay the bill because having her is very expensive, and even if she takes money, but even if she don't take money, you have to. She must travel in business class, right? With
First.
It's we had the same thing with what's the name? Another top talent that we brought to Los Angeles for the Oscars, and to bring her there, even she wanted to go there. She was willing to because she was playing in Dad and Brothers film 2 day 1 night, and it was 50,000 euros to bring her there, and that's where you need sponsors. You know, you need Dior or Chanel to
Marion Cotillard.
Marion Cotillard, yes, Marion Cotillard. So, and she was very supportive for the film, you know, but to bring her there with her hairdresser, it costs a lot of money, but it's worth it, you know. And you have to make it's not with public money, we don't pay for this because it's insane, you know. But you can find Dior. They were very happy to have her there, so she was on the red carpet with very nice clothes for 6 months. All the magazines were talking about, and you had this nice picture of her. But it requires so many. You have to align the planets, you know, to make it, and it's very. It takes a lot of time. It takes it's very.
That's why Cannes is the biggest.
Yeah, of course.
Because they get it all, you know. That's why it's the number one
and
in
it's
the world.
not complicated, and it's complicated for them.
Yeah. But it's a marketing tool for
course.
Cultural content.
Of course.
It's like, you know. But if you have 1 or 2 of them, then you can put in the package the, let's say, unknown.
Yes, and that's why you need this to get a pitch upon.
Yeah.
There. And when he wins the Golden Palm, it's great that this kind of film can win the Golden Palm, and it's thanks to Julia Roberts on
We are facing since 2015 happened many things. Many small companies are going bankrupt, production companies and so on. The world is getting corporate, and these big corporations who are buying companies, they want product placement. So you, in a way, if you can provide them content that is for them product placement, like for Dior, then you can get the money from them. This is the same with the film. If you take a local actor, they won't invest $1 million. But if you come with Monica Bellucci, they say, okay, well, this will we can calculate that this will in distribution sell. You know, we will return the investment at least, and we will. You know, so I think is a mix of all together. How to is very difficult.
Another cheap trick is to invent a prize and say you need to come to the festival to pick up your prize.
That's a good one. That's a really nice advice.
I wanted to compliment both what Eric and Sergei told me, and just add one word which is very important in the equation is media. And so you understand where I come from. The first time I did Cannes for my company, for Sony, at the end of Cannes, I look at the bill I paid for cars, bodyguards and stuff. I say, shit, I can buy a Mercedes for that price. But when you have Stallone, Arnold, Jane Fonda, whatever, you need bodyguard, whatever. All right. So what I'm just want to say, it's worth it. And it's worth it because of the media. And one day we had the reissue of Lawrence of Arabia, and I worked a little bit. I got the 1962 Mercedes vintage. I got the wine from 62, blah, blah, blah. I organized a lot of things. And they just put one TV crew in one of the Mercedes that transported us from Carlton to Palais, which is about 500 meters. And it brought us 2 hours put together of TV coverage, millions. So basically, if you can afford it, and alas, the studio, they can do it. They can foot the bill, say, yeah, it's worth traveling because we were going to get the media to show it. And then what Sergei was saying, there's an equation in each festival, like Zadar needs to show how beauty it is. If you have Kate Winslet, or if you have George Clooney coming out of the boat in Venice, you see how beautiful Venice is. So someone can foot that bill. So it's a very complex equation, distinct from each festival to another. It's probably more difficult in Sheffield than in Venice, or it's more difficult when you're in Berlin with minus 13 and snow and you fall every 5 minutes. When it's easier in the Bahamas, you name it. But
thanks to climate changing, it's
It's
years now. It's falling in Berlin.
it's going to change anyway.
Do you have any more questions? Yes.
That's perfectly fine. I understand. Bigger festival, I think it's easier. But when we get to smaller ones, how can we? Of course, the system is the same, but maybe you must be lucky to get the first, let's say, top talent that comes to your festival. But sometimes you don't know who to ask.
But we are a small festival.
Okay.
And the philosophy was we will never pay to an agent. We won't do this. But we kind of create a circle of friends. And then one friend was a good friend of Matt Dillon. He said, I asked him, he will come, what is a ticket from New York, even if it's business class, it's maybe 2,000 euros, not much. So these 2 years he comes, he doesn't come, he comes, he doesn't. So it's this whole thing. You be patient. And then he confirmed, it was when the storm in New York was, so he came with the last flight, and it was packed with journalists. And you can bring whoever you want, there will be 2 or 3 journalists, they will come. But we're a small festival, but this gave like PR, So you kind of have to, I think, make a circle of friends who will say, well, I like your location, I like you, we will support you. People will help you because they know you're a small festival, but you become friends with. And that's, I think, how you can. It's difficult. It's really difficult because there is also a lot of events. It's too many events. I mean, how are you going to? This week is hundreds of Rome is now market festival, and then it's like where to go, and so, you know, I think it's really.
You should talk to the supplier of the film, of this hypothetical feature film. So the sales agent or the distributor, and say, can we come to an arrangement where you waive the screening fee if I go to the effort of making the actor or the director or the writer feel very welcome, put them in a nice hotel, they get to have dinner with the mayor, we'll find a limousine and they can be taken to the historic sites and a tour, and just make it really nice for them.
Maybe we did something, we've done something like this, but we started from the people, I mean, directors or actors from the town. Our town is Arezzo, and it's famous for Life is Beautiful.
Yeah. And Joseph, do you want to comment on this?
Well, I just wanted to comment that, yeah, we are Krakow Film Music Festival, but there is Krakow Film Festival. And, you know, we have composers coming who know that they are coming to perform the music, not for us to view, you know, to screen the movies that they play music for, but they very often, they don't ask. They just, you know, record us an inviting video, or they just write on their Facebook that they are coming for Krakow Film Festival, which is absolutely frustrating, and that makes us, you know, always wonder if it's any use. I think when it comes to the name of the city, it actually depends if a larger percentage of your public is from outside of the city or from inside of the city, because, you know, for Krakowians, when we started the festival, it was Film Music Festival without the Krakow, because it was only for actually inhabitants of the city, and it didn't matter where it was, because we knew that it was in Krakow. It was just obvious thing. But then more and more industry representatives started coming, more and more, you know, international composers, producers. So it was, of course, important for us to notify them that no, we are not like Ghent or Tenerife or somewhere else, because there started being more festivals like that. So I don't think it's an easy thing. I think there are special companies that take 5 months for you to, you know, for inventing the name.
Understand what works and what doesn't, and once again, you know, testing and knowing your audience.
We're trying.
And obviously, you guys have talked about festivals because you're, you know, festival strategists. Obviously, Joseph, you are an expert in heritage culture. How can institutions in specific cities, in specific countries, kind of like get the attention of people that want to do festivals, that want to do projects there?
That's really, that's a strategy and should be put into the action plan of each film festival to engage the public entities, not only city halls, but all kind of government agencies. And many times, the art director of a film festival don't even contact the right institutions at the right time with a large time before, because they go maybe at the last moment, they don't find the mayor, they don't find the head of representation of the city hall, or even the public government agencies at all levels. We should remember at all levels, not only local level, provincial level, regional, national, European, international. So that's a big, big job. And I never saw a great business model, including...
Yeah, there's no specific way to do it.
No, there's a way, but...
What do you think are the best strategies, or at least the highlights?
You have to insert a business model of cultural diplomacy attachment. It's simply called a cultural diplomacy attachment to your business plan, to your business model, and attach it with simply the names of at all levels of the public entities. So who is responsible for what? Share this information inside the team and outside the team. That's another problem. There are internal barriers, invisible.
Yeah, sure.
No, invisible. Sometimes they don't even know the emails of each other. So delete the invisible, hidden, but internal barriers to be more competitive. So
Well,